Everybody, it's 7:30, time for us to get started. I'll ask Deputy Clerk Jones to call the roll.
All right. Trustee Augustine. Trustee Gale.
Here.
Trustee McGee, absent. Trustee O'Brien.
Here.
Trustee Peterson.
Here.
Trustee Thompson.
Here.
And President Kukler is absent. We have a quorum, and now we are looking for a motion to appoint Trustee Gale to serve as President Pro Tem.
I move that Trustee Gale become President Pro Temp for the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Right. Oh, motion passes, so I'm serving as President Pro Tem. Thank you. Thank you for that. All right, good evening, welcome. Again, in President Kukler's absence, I will be serving as President Pro Tem this evening. Video for the evening is streamed on YouTube and will also be available on Facebook and the Village's website. We've already called the roll, so thank you for that, Deputy Clerk Jones. Could you now please invite the audience to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'll start off with the President's report. Just a reminder that spring break is coming up. Grange schools will be on spring break over the next few weeks, so motorists are urged to be observant as the weather warms up and cautious around pedestrians as they are as kids are spring breaking, and of course be cautious in areas where pedestrians may be present. And so the village wishes to all the parents and the school children an enjoyable and restful spring break. Next coming up is spring cleanup. This year's spring cleanup will be held the week of April 14th for residents on their regular collection day. The contract with Flood Brothers requires a separate spring cleanup sticker that once affixed to an item put out for collection allows for an unlimited number of items to be disposed of. Again, be thoughtful, don't put out the sticker until maybe right before the morning, because sometimes people come through and collect some of the items left out. Spring cleanup stickers are now available at the same location as refuse and yard waste stickers. For more information on the program, please visit the village's website. At this point now, I'd like to turn to item A in the President's report, a public hearing regarding Special Service Area 7. Item A is the Special Service Area 7. In 2004, the Village of LaGrange adopted ordinance number 00409 that established Special Service Area 7, also known as SSA, for 20 tax years for the purpose of improving and maintaining the area referred to as the Central Business District. SSA 7 has provided the village with the ability to maintain a vibrant and attractive central business district and allows for services such as installing, improving, providing, cleaning and maintaining sidewalks, landscaping, streets, alleys, street furniture, fencing, lighting, decorations, signage, banners, trash removal services, leaf removal, snow and ice removal, street sweeping, and other services. As it is near expiration, the extension of the SSA for another 20 years is proposed to continue support for the ongoing maintenance needs of the Central Business District. In accordance with the Special Service Area Tax Law, the hosting of a public hearing to receive testimony on the extension of the SSA is a required step in the process. As such, I will now open the public hearing to ask all those who wish to comment to come up to the podium just regarding the Special Service Area 7. All right. Oh, I see a comment.
Randy Valenta, 19 South LaGrange Road. I'd like to know, I read up a little bit on the Special Service Area concept and how it's proliferated in the state of Illinois over the past few decades. In fact, the city of Chicago alone has 82 special service areas that seem to be heavily aligned with community groups. Of course, they're administered by a municipality, the city of Chicago, but they incorporate a lot of activity of the individual neighborhood groups, the back of the yards, Chamber of Commerce or Wrigleyville this or something. And I was wondering, is that concept present in our SSA here? And secondly, I was wondering, the letter that I got mentioned that we apportion or we receive $119,618 in fiscal 24-25 for this particular tax levy, and I found it on my tax bill as well. I'm wondering, for all the things you mentioned, President Pro Tem Gale, does that cover all the expenses there, or just a portion, or how does that balance out? Do we know that?
Yeah, I'd have to defer to staff to confirm if they can, but my general understanding is it does cover those expenses.
It does help defray the costs. I'm not certain that it pays for all the costs to maintain the central business district, but it does help defray the costs that are special and unique to the SSA 7 district. As far as the community group aspect is concerned, I'm not really familiar with that structure. Generally, SSAs that I'm aware of have been more to finance things such as like stormwater, sewer systems, things of that nature, and the attorney might want to share.
Sure. Specifically, you had mentioned Chicago, and Chicago does have slightly different rules that are allowed. They can have what's called SSAs or business improvement districts, which are community kind of privatized SSA type of entities. So if you're looking at Chicago, those may have kind of the Loop and the LaSalle SSA and those various different things. They just are slightly different from some of the SSAs that you might see in the municipalities that, as the village manager indicated, are more geared towards defraying the cost of village improvements and things of that nature, and rather than being like a HSA or HOA or other community-driven organizations.
I'm sorry, I had one more question, just a data point here. I wasn't here 20 years ago when it was first adopted, and I was looking at the procedure of establishing the SSA, and I assume renewing it as well, and I wondered, what is the maximum tax rate that is allowed for the SSA?
Again, I don't know that. I'd have to defer to staff if they're aware.
I'm not aware of any maximums. I could tell you that it's 2.5%, and it has been, I believe, throughout the duration of the SSA.
Is it planned to stay that way for the renewal?
Yeah, if you have reviewed the materials, it indicates that it'll be that amount plus the CPI on an annual basis, so that will remain as it has been for the past 20 years.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no other comments regarding SSA 7, I will move to close the public hearing regarding SSA 7. So moving on, now will be a public hearing regarding the proposed fiscal year 2025-26 operations and capital improvements budget. As part of the village's annual budgeting process, the village board will convene a public hearing for the purposes of receiving public comment regarding the proposed fiscal year 2025-26 operating and capital improvements budget. The budgeting process has included the adoption of the final 2024 property tax levy in December 24, a capital project workshop held on February 24, 2025, and a budget workshop held on March 8, 2025. A notice of the public hearing has been posted and published in accordance with requirements, and the proposed budget has been made available for inspection. The budget is scheduled for approval during our April 14, 2025 Village Board meeting. And so I now open the public hearing regarding the proposed fiscal year 2025-26 operating and capital improvements budget and invite all those that wish to the podium to provide public comment.
Hello, everyone. Al Foreman, 56 7th Avenue in LaGrange. I'll start by offering my thanks for everyone who was involved in creating the fiscal year 25-26 budget. I'm very appreciative of the efforts that were led by Finance Director Micah and Village Manager Knight. So thank you for all your efforts, and thank you for all you do for making LaGrange such a wonderful place. So with that as kind of a softener, I do have several comments that I want to cover tonight. I've distributed a handout. Don't worry, I'm not going through all of that. But I do intend to try to hit highlights in the letter that I've included. And there's attachments, which I quickly explained, which are intended to be left with you you can digest at your leisure. I'm honestly not sure if I'm chasing the plane down the runway, and so I'm not sure where the budget stands. I noticed when I downloaded the file, it said final, but I appreciate the opportunity to voice my feedback, and maybe some points might resonate. So with that, I would say I would first suggest that there's several points that I'd like you all to consider before we finalize and approve the budget. These are items 1 through 6 on the handout if you're reading along. The first is the budget process subject to review by auditors? And if the answer is no, then what levels of review do we have to ensure that the numbers are accurate? Incidentally, just for a matter of presentation, I just hope to be able to cover the topics, unless you want to engage in an answer and dialogue, but I'm just hoping to deliver kind of a monologue. But that's the first point. I mean, is audit inspection involved, yes or no? The second point is we're 5 weeks from the end of the current fiscal year. And have we seen any detailed reports showing year-to-date actuals on the current fiscal year? And if so, are there nuggets of information there which would help us as we consider the next year's budget? Number 3, how do historical working cash and fund balance information reconcile with audited financial statements from last year? Fourth is, does the village have a conceptual objective such as a balanced budget approach? And if we do budget a deficit, have we scrutinized the budgets to determine the must-haves versus the nice-to-haves? The fifth item, my humble view here, is I believe everything boils down to cash, and it's the cash the village receives and the cash the village spends. With that simple concept in mind, what's the current balance of the village cash and investment accounts? How do those accounts reconcile with the year-to-date budget expectations? And item 6, accounting, auditing, and financial reporting policies, specifically item 2 on page 32 of the budget package, states the village will produce monthly financial reports by major fund. Are we compliant? Who receives those monthly reports, and are they available for public inspection? So I'd now like to turn to a few points of observations. And the first is, in the cover letter in the package, I noticed numerous instances of figures that I was unable to trace elsewhere in the budget report. I therefore focused my analysis on pages 3 through 5 and all the underlying fund and departmental budgets. I recommend that page 3 include totals of the fund balances at the bottom of the page. As currently presented, the fiscal 25-26 combined village budget projects a deficit of $1,445,000. Drawing your attention to pages 3, 4, and 5, I think the total village revenues and expenditures appear to be overstated. Each individual fund may be accurate, but simply adding those fund statements together results in duplication of amounts which appear in multiple funds. It may be appropriate to add a footnote explaining the fact that some amounts appear in multiple funds, or preferably show adjustments when combining funds to avoid overstating revenues and expenditures. The easiest example to illustrate is property taxes on page 4. The fiscal 25-26 budget shows property tax revenues of $13,289,000. However, the actual village tax levy, excluding the village library, shown on page 6, is only $9,406,000. Why the difference? It appears the property tax levy assigned to the police and fire pension funds has been included in the general fund as well. Now, this may be very appropriate from individual fund accounting procedures, but it's an instance where the property tax dollars will obviously only be received once. And I think it's confusing to see a property tax amount of $13,289,000 on the revenue statement, revenue summary, when that's inconsistent with the property tax levy. On page 5, it appears expenses for debt service are overstated by $794,000. That amount is included in the general ledger budget within the general fund and also included in the debt services fund. Again, specific fund accounting may require this treatment, but logically, you can assume the debt services cash expenditures will be made only once. The general ledger expense budget within the general fund includes $3,741,000 of employer contributions to the pension funds. This amount overstates the total expenditures since similar amounts have already been included in the police and fire pension funds. Now, what does this all mean? I've attached 5 exhibits to this note. You can review them at your leisure. Hopefully, they're self-explanatory. Exhibits 1, 2, and 2A relate to revenue and expenditures and reflect my attempt to accurately combine all budgets and eliminate the duplications when summarizing the combined village budget. Exhibit 3 lists specific comments page by page in the current budget package. Exhibit 4 compares financial information from last year's village annual report with amounts appearing in the current budget package. Some large differences may warrant your attention. My conclusion? It appears there's still work to do to ensure the budget package has a consistent flow of data throughout all the funds and department budgets, as well as the combined total. My exhibits 1, 2, and 2A could be a helpful addition to the budget package. If my math is accurate, I think the 25-26 revenue after eliminations totals $38,948,000, while expenditures after eliminations total $39,585,000, a deficit of $637,000. It's less in my calculations than appears to be calculated on page 3 of the current draft. So finally, I think a very impressive message that could be shared with the residents would be a statement that the village has crafted a balanced budget for the upcoming fiscal year. That may require staff to revisit and review and refine projections, but I think it's a very worthy goal to achieve before finalizing the budget in April. Thank you very much for considering my feedback.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no other comments on the budget, I will close the public hearing regarding the budget. And with that, Manager Knight, please provide the manager's report.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Gale, and good evening, everyone. Just one item to note for tonight. I'd like to extend our gratitude to our partners at IDOT for the closure of Plainfield Road on East Avenue and for posting construction zone speed limit signs. Our staff continues to monitor for impacts related to this new traffic pattern and includes a special patrol assignment in the area starting this week. So I just wanted to extend our thank you to our friends over at IDOT. And that concludes my report.
All right. Thank you, Manager Knight. Deputy Clerk Jones, I'd like to request that you read the items on the consent agenda, followed by those appearing on current business.
Of course. Matters on the consent agenda will be considered by a single motion and vote because they have already been considered fully by the board at a previous meeting or have been determined to be of a routine nature. Any member of the Board of Trustees may request that an item be moved from the consent agenda to current business for separate consideration. Item A, a resolution approving an agreement with Lifeline Billing Systems, LLC for debt collection services. Item B, a resolution authorizing participation in a joint salt purchase master contract for the purchase of rock salt. Item C, an ordinance amending Title VI, Chapter 3, Section 631 of the Village Code regarding general parking restrictions. Item D, a resolution authorizing the village manager to execute the execution of a settlement and parking lot access agreement. Item E, minutes of the Village Board of LaGrange Trustees meeting February 24th, 2025. Item F, minutes of the Village Board for LaGrange of Trustees meeting March 10th, 2025. Item G, March 24th, 2025, consolidated voucher. Items under current business. These agenda items include consideration of matters being presented to the Board of Trustees for action. Item A, An ordinance approving a zoning code text amendment regarding permitted and special uses in the open space district. Item B, an ordinance amending Ordinance O-1310, approving a special use and site plan for Gordon Park and granting a design review permit for an enlarged band shell.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk Jones. So next on our tonight's agenda is public comments regarding agenda items. But before we move to that, with the board's approval, I'd like to say we move to have items also not on the agenda, allow comments for matters not on the agenda, so that we know that I know Dr. Chris Covino is here from D102, so he could have an opportunity to speak. So unless there's some objection. I don't see any objection. All right, why don't we move for matters? So this would be matters not on the agenda if there's public comments. And I know Dr. Covino would certainly like to speak, so I'll let you take the yeah. Please come up and take the podium.
I appreciate the time. Thank the Board of Trustees. I am doing my very best to make my way to all three of our townships to make sure that I can reach as many folks as possible to provide information for the upcoming referendum that is on the ballot on April 1st in exactly 8 days, I guess, or 7, and just a little bit left. I've provided as a public official, as you all well know, my work here is just to provide information. So I am not here to advocate one way or another, or to act in a political way, but to answer any questions and to direct either the Board of Trustees or anyone listening to places where they can find information about our referendum that will be on the ballot in a few days. So all of the information I'm about to present, which is in a packet in front of you, and I will be brief, I promise, I appreciate the time, can also be found at, and this is catchy, renewd102.com or .org. Either one takes you to all of the information, renewd102.com or .org. It has a number of pieces that I'll be covering in the next few minutes, as well as connections to all of the financial questions that people have been asking over the last few months related to this referendum and why it's come to be at this point in time. So just a tiny bit of history. About this time last year, our district decided that it was time to renew its strategic plan. And our board initiated a community engagement process, which I was very happy to facilitate, that came up with 6 areas of focus. Those areas include pieces about instruction, pieces about opportunities, access, and belonging for students, about staff satisfaction, about fiscal responsibility, about community engagement, and then finally, in an area that we just called at the time, future-ready facilities. And future-ready facilities prompted us to then put together another community engagement group to figure out what we wanted out of our facilities, what we wanted for our students, and what type of investment we might need to make over the next 20 to 25 years, a generational investment in students of LaGrange, LaGrange Park, and Brookfield for all students of District 102. And in the end, what our engagement group came up with, a very large plan, a very comprehensive plan that addresses 5 pieces very specifically. And those pieces are overcrowding, safety and security, upgrades to safety and security, improving accessibility across the district, updating classrooms, creating STEM and STEM learning spaces and labs in all of our elementary buildings, and addressing particularly deteriorating buildings and conditions. And I just want to hit on a few of the concepts of each of those briefly. We do have 6 buildings in the district, but I can highlight even just Cosset Elementary School just celebrated its 100th birthday last year. And it's one of 3 buildings that are over 100 years old at this point in time, where when we did a survey, we used STR architecture to do a facility assessment. What we found was that we have approximately $35 million worth of repairs. As most people who work in older spaces know, buildings get old and they get more expensive to repair over time. And we are finding that some of those repairs are both urgent and needed in the next 5 to 10 years. So a significant portion of the referendum, over $20 million, was devoted just to what we would consider, to some extent, just-in-time renovations to several of our buildings. We have some failing plumbing systems, aging electrical systems, definitely antiquated safety and security and communication systems within the buildings. We have outdated classrooms and learning spaces, and other infrastructure needs that just need to be addressed and would be addressed through this referendum. So there are a number of just real needs that we feel like the buildings have. But in addition to that, right, like I said before, this is a more comprehensive plan. It's not just addressing the infrastructure of the buildings, but also creating new learning opportunities at the same time. So when we developed the renewd102.oregon.com group, we started to look at how we could make further educational investments at the same time and support the district Vision 2030 plan that we came up with our strategic planning. So I'll just sort of break down a little bit about where some of the investments might be, and then talk about the price, and then see if there are any questions, and we'll go from there. But to ensure safety and security in all of our schools, we want to upgrade just all of our basic infrastructure systems. We need to install secure locks and doors. Many of our doors are the same ages as our buildings, and definitely the locks and lock systems. We do not have currently an integrated security messaging system that goes back and forth between any of the buildings. And one of the things that came out very clearly in our review process is that if we were to build schools now, the safety codes have changed so dramatically that a lot of the current systems would not even be allowed. But we've made them work. And I've been often said that during this process, we have amazing schools, we have amazing students, and we have wonderful teachers, and we have an incredible staff. Right? So this isn't a comment on any of that. This is actually a push towards improving the conditions that we currently have. So that's safety and security, a few pieces. That's across almost every single building. As far as accessibility is concerned, we have playgrounds that are elevated inches off the ground so that no student who's in a walking device or has limited mobility can access them. Wood chips also aren't great for that as well. We also have aging playground structures, and we have no elevator systems in most of the schools. So part of what would be included here would be an elevator system in both Cosset School and Ogden School. Cosset's interesting. If you've been inside of it, you know that it has 8 half levels. So that will be an architectural marvel, but they do say that it can go in. It is part of the system. We also want to update our playground so that every student has access to every piece of them. Reducing overcrowding, updating classrooms, and expanding opportunities is another piece of this. We do want to move, like almost every other school in the area and across Illinois and even the nation, our 6th graders over to the junior high. We currently have 7th and 8th graders there and provide a more rigorous learning environment for our 6th graders. We believe, the committee believe, but we believe educationally it's a better preparation and a pipeline to Lyons Township or Nazareth or whatever high school a student chooses to go to. But at the same time, we're space limited. Right, so moving students from the 6th grade over to the junior high school would enable us to use those 6th grade rooms to build out STEM classrooms inside of each of the buildings. There's sort of a domino effect. We can put in the resource rooms that we need. We currently have students that are learning in hallways. We have students that are learning in, makeshift closet areas, small spaces that were never designed for education, but we make it work currently because the students need it. The other pieces are that we have students eating in hallways. All the students at Cosset, if you've been there recently, all the 1st graders, they eat lunch in the hallway outside of the cafeteria. The truth is the cafeteria space just can't fit all the kids inside of it. So part of this plan is also to build a gym outside of Cosset, right, for the community to use in addition to the school, right, and then actually use the current gym space, which has a very large pole in the middle of the basketball court, as the new cafeteria space. So it is like I said earlier, a plan that has a lot of pieces, but it really came together over 3 or 4 months with the help of a community group of about 35 people. We had 2 community workshops that had about 100 people at each one, and the plan that we came up with is what I've outlined here. Your packet, I know I'm speaking very quickly now because I'm way past my 3 minutes. I appreciate it. At the end has a kind of a breakdown of where the numbers lie for each of the different areas. And the overall referendum is an $82 million referendum across all of the townships. If the question is what does that mean for a homeowner, it means for a homeowner of approximately a $500,000 home, we used a very median number for the area, it's approximately a $532 increase per year or approximately $44 a month. right? So we do know that anytime you're asking the community to have a higher tax rate, it has to come with a strong plan. It has to come with community support and an engaged community. And we know that, and we just appreciate everyone's thought process about what's gone on. And if there are any questions, I can take them. But if not, I would encourage everyone to vote, whichever way you'd like to, before April 1st or on April 1st. Can I answer any questions for you?
Oh, all right. Trustee Thompson, go ahead.
So, excuse me, so the taxer says that you're actually pulling the money in two tranches. So the first 5 or 6 years, it's going to cost me $1,003. But then in the 6th year, it's going to suddenly jump to $1,457 because you're pulling that second amount of money in bigger numbers. Also, my home evaluation, while it's more than $600, these numbers don't match to what my valuation is going to cost. Have y'all checked the math on this and shown this completely that is the number going to go up after year 6?
No. So we use Raymond James as our financial advisor. We work very closely with them. They've been checking the math all along the way. This would be a one-time assessment and then valuation, right? So whatever your home's value is currently, or when this goes into effect, would be the only rate at which the assessment would be made. And I typically use the 500,000 there just because I'm not very good at math. I probably shouldn't say that as a school superintendent, but that's the easiest one to say double, right? So if your home was somewhere between 500,000 and $1 million in assessed value, then you can double that number. These numbers were rechecked approximately 3 weeks ago before we put together this current slide deck. So they are as close as they can be without rechecking them today.
And there's no increase after year 6?
There is not.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh, Trustee Augustine.
Thank you. I've been fairly involved in this and have enjoyed seeing this progress and develop into what it is. Been following it closely. And one of the things that I found interesting, because I didn't really know the difference between a junior high and a middle school until I started to pay attention to this. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because that was really important to me. It's not just that the feeder schools need the space, it's that the model of the junior high is 6th, 7th, and 8th, and there's some good reasons for that. And the teachers coming out with their degrees are used to teaching in that environment. So how does that benefit our school? And I happen to know that there's very few schools who still have just a 7th, 8th grade model. So
yeah, our district is probably one of the last 10 to 15 schools in the state of Illinois that actually has 7, 8 middle school. So most have converted. If you were reading, and probably nobody was, educational journals 25 years ago, 35 years ago, there was a middle school movement that really talked about reshaping junior high schools into a place where students were experiencing a slower and more guided transition into a high school setting. So one of the things that moving 6th graders into a 7-8 building does is it allows us to really capture the benefits of a teaming model, right? So the way that we would lay out the school would be in teams of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. They might even be on different floors. We have 3 floors at Park Junior High right now, right? So first floor, 6th graders, and then they would have 3 teams, approximately 300 kids, 100 kids per team. That team would have an English teacher, a math teacher, a science teacher, a social studies teacher, potentially an elective and a language teacher, all grouped together, right? And these are staff members we currently have in the district, so we're not jumping into additional staff numbers. But it just optimizes the teachers' planning time together and the students' teaming time together and collaboration time together. So if this were to move forward, one of the next steps is to start talking really seriously with an architect about how we make those collaboration spaces work. Right? It also assists with SEL pieces so that we're addressing students. So we have social workers and school psychologists and even a dean of students all working with individual teams And it provides a much more mature transition than what they experience in the elementary school, right? Where they are basically first graders and sixth graders currently are operating with the same type of structures and rules. And I think if you asked a number of sixth graders, they would say they don't love that all that much. And actually, our last student climate survey that we gave in the elementary schools, our first through third graders identified that they don't love the big kids being around all that much either, both on the playground and in the hallways. So I think it goes both ways. So there are some pieces that are really beneficial there. The additional opportunity piece is one of the better ones, though. The sixth graders then begin to participate in athletics. The EASA, the IHSA's version, they have an elementary version as well, which has a state series. And we are now competing in that in several different areas. Our new wrestling team is now competing in that, our cross-country team and one of our volleyball teams. And we hope to grow that into our basketball teams as well, so that there's actually a state competition for students even as young as sixth grade. So that's a new opportunity. We have elective courses that we're adding. The students just voted. They want a culinary class. We don't actually have a kitchen in the building, so maybe that's something we might have to work into plans. But they wanted something that was technology related. And LT has an amazing program that we would then pair with our groupings. Part of our strategic plan is figuring how to build pathways to the experiences in high school, so it's not just 2 years and 2 years there, but it's a continuum of services to students and opportunities. And a 3-year junior high school really is a good time to establish that foundation and those pathways.
All right. Seeing no other comments. All right. Thank you, Dr. Covino. Appreciate that. And so this is now still public comments for matters not on the agenda. So if anybody has any other comments on matters not on the agenda, now's the time. All right. Seeing none, now we will entertain comments on matters on the agenda.
Again, I'm commenting on the item C that you're going to vote on, the parking regulation amendment here. And I pulled that down, the amended ordinance here. I think it's item F that we're amending, since that's what's bolded. Is that right? Where it says no vehicle may stop, stand, or park. That's what's being amended, correct?
Yes, that's what's being amended. Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct.
Yeah, and then it lists five particular points, specific points: private property, bus stop, village parkway, private lawn. I mean, all those kind of strike me as duh. And the one that I'm most excited about is in the public alley. I'm glad to see it there. I support that wholeheartedly, and I'm just wondering, are we going to have any change in signage or enforcement in the public alleys?
I'd have to ask staff. Go ahead, Chief. You look like you're ready.
So we've had these ordinances in the past. We've always had these ordinances. When we did the rewrite with the Title VI ordinance, we adopted the Illinois Vehicle Code. And with doing that, these trailed off from the ordinance. So these are being added to include that back into the ordinance like what we've always had. So we're not necessarily changing the ordinance or changing the practice that we've had or the enforcement that we're doing. Where it is, it's kind of a housekeeping item, getting this back into the ordinance the way we want it to be.
So that's a no on the signs?
Well, there was not an intention to do signs. This is an enforcement ordinance so that the enforcement, as the ordinance stays on the books, so that we can continue to enforce the ordinance.
Okay.
But if there's an area that you feel needs signs, you're more than welcome to let me know about it. We can take a look at it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Jenny Bechtold, Park District of LaGrange. I'm just here to let you know I'm here for items 6A and 6B if you have any questions.
Oh, great. Thank you, Jenny. All right. Seeing no other comments on matters on the agenda, I think now we would entertain a motion and a vote on matters on the consent agenda.
I move that we approve all items on the consent agenda.
Second.
All right. Thank you. Trustee Thompson, Trustee Peterson. I think we have a roll call vote. Is that correct? All right, so roll call vote. Deputy Clerk Jones, please.
Thank you. Trustee Augustine?
Aye.
Trustee Gale?
Aye.
Trustee McGee is absent. Trustee O'Brien?
Aye.
Trustee Peterson?
Aye.
And Trustee Thompson?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Right. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Now moving on to current business. First is an ordinance approving a zoning code text amendment regarding permitted and special uses in the open space district. I talked Trustee O'Brien into reading this for us, and I appreciate that. So I'll defer it to Trustee O'Brien.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Gale. The Park District of LaGrange, otherwise known as the Park District, has petitioned the village for a text amendment to reclassify active recreation areas owned by the Illinois Unit of Local Government from a special use to a permitted use in the open space or OS district. Zoning Code Sections 8-0102 and 8-105. The OS district is one of two special districts within the zoning code. The other is the Institutional Buildings District. These districts were created to address the unique attributes of uses like parks, hospitals, churches, and schools that are dissimilar to typical residential, commercial, or industrial land uses. The OS district includes only properties owned and operated by the Park District and the Lyons Township High School District. Currently, hard surface sport courts or tennis, basketball, etc. in the OS districts are considered active creation areas and require a special use permit, while grass surface sports fields, i.e. soccer, baseball, etc., are considered play fields and a permitted use. The Plan Commission considered the proposed amendment on March 11, 2025, and voted 5-0 to recommend approval. Approval of the ordinance would make hard surface sports courts a permitted use in the OS district. I recommend approval of the proposed ordinance approving zoning code text amendment regarding permitted and special uses in the OS district.
A second.
Thank you, trustees. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Augustine?
Aye.
Trustee Gale?
Aye.
Trustee McGee is absent. Trustee O'Brien?
Aye.
Trustee Peterson? Trustee Thompson?
Aye.
All right, and the motion carries. Thank you. Now moving on to item B, an ordinance amending ordinance 013-10, approving a special use and site plan for Gordon Park, granting a design review permit for an enlarged band shell. And again, I will ask Trustee O'Brien to read that one for us as well.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Gale. The Park District of LaGrange has petitioned the village to amend previously approved special use permit and site plan approvals for Gordon Park to facilitate the construction of a larger band shell. Because Gordon Park is in the design review overlay district, the proposed construction also requires a design review permit. On April 22, 2013, the current band shell and overall site plan was approved through a special use permit O-13-10. The Park District is proposing a significant enlargement of the band shell structure anchored in generally the same location with similar open sides and rear design. The Park District is also proposing various minor modifications to the overall site plan, including improved pedestrian access from nearby parking to the band shell. The Plan Commission considered the proposed amendment on March 11, 2025. The Park District presented testimony regarding the recent community engagement efforts and how the band shell aligned with their plan goals. The Plan Commission asked questions regarding operations and potential off-site impacts. The Plan Commission voted 5-0 to recommend approval with conditions regarding the installation of landscaping, the color of the band shell roof, and specifying when changes to the proposed operations require future village approval. I recommend approval of the proposed ordinance approving a special use and site plan for Gordon Park and granting a design review permit for an enlarged band shell.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. Trustee Peterson. Is there any discussion? And I apologize for previously not allowing discussion on previous matters we've handled. I jumped right ahead. But is there any discussion on this item? Trustee Augustine.
And it might take Jenny to help answer. I would like to hear, I have a pretty good sense of some of the programming you plan to do and how things will change slightly by having this structure. Could you tell us a little bit about what you see from the park perspective?
Sure. We're still kind of working through the programming, but some of the items we're looking to have is Country Jam. This summer, we will not have Country Jam. It will be closed. But we're looking to have other events like Country Jam, similar size, nothing too large. We can do dance recitals. We can do senior events. So there's a host of opportunities. We have had some inquiries about rentals, orchestras, church groups. So there's different opportunities there too. Obviously, we'll comply with all village regulations, noise ordinances. So yeah, we're still kind of working through some of the programming though too.
Any other comments? All right, seeing none, a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Augustine.
Aye.
Trustee Gale.
Aye.
Trustee McGee is absent. Trustee O'Brien.
Aye.
Trustee Peterson.
Aye.
Trustee Thompson.
Aye.
All right, and that motion carries. That's all for the matters on the agenda. So at this point in time, we've already covered public comments regarding matters not on the agenda. So I'll move right into trustee comments. Are there any trustee comments this evening? Trustee Augustine.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Gale. It was already addressed that voting is coming up, and there is information on the village website about how to vote, where to vote, when to vote. So it's a big one this year. So if you're going out of town for spring break, do it early. And also for those who have who live in certain areas, you may have noticed that last week the quarry blasting started again. And it's very noticeable because you will feel it. You will hear it and feel it. And I wanted just to update folks who want to get more involved and talk about it in the Facebook group. The group has been renamed, and it's now called Brookfield-LaGrange Area Quarry Concerns. So it's slightly shorter. So if you're looking to get onto Facebook, it's a private group, but if you live in the area and you have those issues, they'll let you in. And it's a great place to go and learn about what's happening and why and what we can do. So I just wanted to pass that information along.
Thank you, Trustee Augustine. Any other trustee comments? Trustee Thompson.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Gale. That's hard to say.
It is. It's a mouthful.
Just a question. There was a comment made by our president at a meeting last week that says we do, and this is for clarification, says that we do allow wine bars not subject to the 60/40 rule under, I think he was referring to Class C2 wine boutique license. But when I look at Class C wine to boutique license, it really refers to Class D1 license, which are wine tasting only. Would we allow a wine bar to open in LaGrange under the current liquor code without an exception or change to that? I guess that's a question I'm asking for staff.
Yeah, I think that's a staff question. I do not know.
I think that might be for me. I think generally when we were approached with the concept, we'll work with the applicant to determine whether or not the request fits existing classification. And, provided that it doesn't, then we would work with them on a request to adjust whatever classifications are in place. Generally look first to make sure that the classifications that are in place couldn't accommodate their need. And then if they do have a request for something that isn't accommodated, that we would consider it at that point.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other trustee comments? All right. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
All right. So we're just all right. Thank you, Trustee Augustine, Trustee O'Brien. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the meeting is adjourned. 8:20.